Is a law that had bipartisan support meant to advance criminal justice reform now being used to help get convicted officers out of jail early? That's what the family of Walter Scott says is happening with the former officer convicted of killing him. Michael Slager shot and killed Scott as he ran away from him following a traffic stop in North Charleston, South Carolina in 2015. You remember the story? Well, Slager pleaded guilty in 2017 to violation of civil rights by acting under the color of law. The Scott family says that Slager could be eligible for early release in 2027 under the First Step Act, the criminal reform measure passed with bipartisan support in 2018. Jared Fishman is with us now. He's a former federal civil rights prosecutor and prosecuted the Slager case. He's now founder and executive director of the Justice Innovation Lab. Jared, thanks for being with me. Can you explain what's being described as a loophole that could lead to Slager's early release?
Sure. The First Step Act was set up to help first-time offenders qualify for earlier release from prison. It was not intended to apply for people who had committed acts of violence. But the way the statute is set up, the Bureau of Prisons will review who in their custody is a first-time offender and then look to see whether or not that person was convicted of any of the 60 offenses that are listed in the statute. Because Michael Slager was convicted of a civil rights crime, that is not on that list. So even though the federal judge found that Slager had committed murder by killing Walter Scott, it is exempt through this loophole.
And so this is not the only case. In New Orleans, there's former police officer Melvin Williams. He was released last year. He was convicted of a civil rights violation that also led to a man's death. Let me read this reporting from our affiliate WVUE. The victim, Raymond Robert, was beaten so badly by the NOPD's Williams with a metal baton in 2005. He suffered fractured ribs, a ruptured spleen, massive internal bleeding, died at Charity Hospital. 6 years later, in 2011, a federal jury convicted Williams of a civil rights violation that led to Robert's death. The jury also convicted Williams, along with his NOPD partner, Matthew Dean Moore, of lying about the circumstances of Robert's death when they brought him to the hospital and said he was suffering from a drug overdose. He was sentenced to 22 years, released after 14. Explain how a parole board can look at this and understand the black letter of the law, but also know that these were violent crimes that were committed and then release these officers.
The issue is that it's not a parole board. It's going through the regular Bureau of Prisons,
Okay.
channels. What they're doing is evaluating who in their custody is a first-time offender. Both Melvin Williams and Michael Slager check that box. The next thing they're looking to do is, do they have a disqualifying conviction? They do not, because they were not convicted of murder per se. They were convicted of civil rights violations. And so my understanding is with Bureau of Prisons is going down that list, those two people are qualified, assuming that they've done the required rehabilitative work inside prison.
And so the First Step Act passed with large majorities in Congress, 87 votes in the Senate, more than 350 votes in the House. Is there any movement behind addressing this opportunity for specifically officers, but I don't imagine it's limited to police officers who are getting early release for these violent crimes?
I don't believe there's any movement at this moment apart from the pressure that the Scott family has recently been pushing to raise awareness. Ultimately, this is a statutory fix that would require Congress to act. But as far as I know, there's no one taking it forward at this point.
All right, Jared Fishman, thank you so much for being with me and explaining what's happening there with some of these convictions.